to the show, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only mighty voice of the Hexagon, Mr. Cyrus Fees, all the way from the United States of America. How are you, sir?
Al, I'm great. I'm here in my little studio here that I've been doing my show from, and yeah, man, I'm enjoying the time at home. To be completely honest with you, just adjusting to the world as it is.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a crazy time, but it's cool that we got this cool technology and we get to do some cool things. I mean, you're one of the guys who's tried to stay pretty busy. You've got a few new shows going on and a couple of cool, exciting things. So talk us through what's happening, man.
Well, this thing hit, pretty much after we got back from EFC. It's pretty much, it was actually literally the week. It was the day before I was supposed to leave for EFC, the last event, and everything started breaking down in the States. I mean, literally the day before. So the night before, actually, NBA gets canceled, all the college sports get canceled. All this stuff's happening, and I literally had to sit and talk with my wife, and I called Cairo, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm coming. I don't know if I feel comfortable right now to even come, because to get on a plane, and what if I get stuck over there? What if something goes down and I can't come back? Because at the time Trump was doing travel bans to Europe and all this stuff, and I'm like, this could be a really bad deal. Thankfully, things had not quite hit you guys very badly at that point. So it all worked out okay. I mean, it was actually a really seamless trip. But, ever since then, I got back home, and then, I had to shut my arcade down. I have a virtual reality arcade here in the States, all based around kids. So I had to shut that down due to state ordinances, and things were just crazy anyways. And then some things started happening. Like I got hooked up with this show with Mediacom, where a good friend of mine, he's a program director at Mediacom. It's like the 5th largest cable company in the States. And he's like, we need content. Can you start calling some of your MMA connections and some of your friends? And I'm like, yeah. I said, all day. So I set up this little green screen studio down in my basement, and I've been rolling with it, man. Just adjusting.
Yeah, very cool, man. Just you mentioned some MMA connections. You've had some how we say, some of the pioneers of the sport you've been talking to. How do those connections start, or where do those sort of relationships stem from?
Just years and years of work. We've literally had some of the biggest pioneers, period. I mean, it blows my mind, and it starts, with, I work with Stephan Bonner up in Minnesota on commentary, so I got that connection, who has the Forrest Griffin connection. I've worked with Dan Severin before a number of times, who's just incredibly knowledgeable. I've had run-ins with Ken Shamrock, have a good relationship with him. And then, just from there, just reaching out to people and using other connections to find other connections. And before you know it, we're interviewing everybody. It's been crazy. Some of these interviews have just been so knowledgeable. And I feel like the ones that I'm doing are different than a normal interview, because I know these guys pretty well, and we just kind of go into some interesting subjects, and it's not the same, what's your favorite fight or who's your best opponent. It's like, how are you handling coronavirus? What were you thinking when you did this? I mean, we're really getting in depth with some things, and I've just enjoyed the process, man. And hopefully we can keep this thing going on past coronavirus and keep this going, period. It's just really, really good content. I'm digging it.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because I think it's a lot of things are going to emerge after this. I think it's going to be a whole new lifestyle, a whole new way about doing things. I think those sort of shows are really going to be the ones that kick off. I mean, like, everyone's talking about trying to find some sort of inlet online and all sorts of craziness. But I think the sport on a whole for the time being is pretty much on hold. So we have to kind of find new ways to create content and keep in touch with audiences. I know the MMA community often is quite spoiled, and I don't think they realize it. And here we are again with the only live sport at the moment. Okay, I know, like, Bundesliga and a few other leagues are starting to come back, but what a crazy world we live in, that MMA was the first sport to come back and do it really successfully.
The most, the opposite of social distancing, you know what I mean? Like, in every part, of the way. It is amazing. And, I give props to Dana and the UFC. I had an interview with Chael Sonnen, and he kind of went into detail on how with the precautions that they put in. And I've heard people on the other side that have criticized them, but for the most part, they're doing everything the way it should be done, and they're making sure these guys are fighting, making sure they're getting paid, making sure that the public has something to watch. I'm cool with it. I really am. And I feel for the fighters, because a lot of the times if these guys aren't fighting, they're not making any money, So, when a fighter, and I know a lot of these guys too, especially in the community in South Africa, and it's sad, because nobody wants to sponsor somebody that's not fighting. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
That's a very, very tough thing. So I feel for these guys. So I'm happy they get the opportunity to fight, especially when they're in their athletic prime, and that there's something out there. So yeah, it's good. I'm doing a show from Abu Dhabi from the house in like 2 weeks. So they're doing the same thing that UFC did, no crowd, quarantines, all these things. But I'm going to be able to call it from the house. So I'm thankful for that.
That's awesome. That's actually something I wanted to ask you. Do you think like we're going to see, I mean, obviously the UFC had in-house commentators, but they were kind of like split up in 3 different areas. And, if you watch the fights, there's a couple of guys, obviously staff and stuff, like hanging around cage side, like all kind of doing their job, but everyone's kind of spaced out. But it seems to me like perhaps, Cyrus, you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah. I think we're a little bit cut out there. You lost me for a second. I'm back.
Screen just went blank, but you're back. Magic.
I'm here.
It's interesting to see how they're going to handle that going forward. And they've even spoken about like off-site judging, like the guys not being on site, perhaps watching remotely. And like you're saying, it's going to start to happen now. You're going to have guys like yourself commentating on shows halfway around the world, which is going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Luckily,
yeah, sorry, go for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of know where you're going here. I mean, luckily, it's the latency. Some of this technology that we're doing right now is incredible. I mean, the latency, there's really no latency, maybe a half a second, so the technology's come a long way. So yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of that. And I'm really interested to see how they handle crowds going forward as well. It's such a big part of the sport. And even though, the UFCs were great, obviously it's very weird not having a crowd there. It's a different type of aspect. You get to hear the coaches more, there's some different things going on there, which is kind of cool. But I'm really interested to see how they're going to handle that more than anything. I think eventually I'll be able to fly to South Africa, or I'll be able to fly to Abu Dhabi. Like, I think that's going to happen. I don't worry about that so much. Obviously, if I could stay home, I would love to, just because, it's 4 days that I have to travel every time I go to South Africa or UAE. Those are 4 days I could, be around my family, 4 days I could be running my business. So I would love to be able to stay home. But I also know that, with both shows that I do on a personal level, I do ring announcing too. So they don't really want to lose that aspect of it. I don't want to lose that income. So, if I can make it work, I'll definitely come down and make it work. But I think you're right. I think things are going to change in a very big way. And it could be great. What if it cuts down on the flu cases? And what if it cuts down on all this crap that, kills tens of thousands of people every year? What if it cuts that stuff down? That'd be great. I think everybody would be cool with less death. So, we'll see, man. It's crazy. I just like watching the process, and I just hope that it doesn't affect me directly. I have an aunt that has coronavirus right now, actually, a great aunt. So hopefully she'll make it through, but I feel bad for anybody that's lost anybody, because who cares if we can't go watch a ball game when somebody else is mourning the loss of their mom or dad? You know what I mean? Like, sure. You got to keep things in perspective, No,
for sure. It is a weird scenario. Like it's, you have to feel at times for the guys making the decisions. I mean, we all agree and disagree with a lot of decisions, but I mean, you've got to kind of put other people's lives one side and people's prosperities one side, and it's chaos. What I want to say to you, Cyrus, one of the cooler things that's coming through, if you take the UFC for example, like even like you're saying, you're going to be able to call fights from your house going forward, like you're going to do now with the UAE and stuff. one of the cooler things, like for someone like me, and I'm really hoping it's going to continue for a while, because being in South Africa, I mean, the access to travel to America is not always there, especially with the small market. I mean, we're not sitting here in the studio like printing money, so to get to events is very difficult. So one of the things that the UFC started doing is like virtual media days, and even post-fight opportunities for interviews and stuff. I got to sit in on the last few, like to ask questions to like Edson Barboza and Walt Harris and Alistair Overeem. Like I got to do it in Abu Dhabi, but I generally don't get to do it, which has been, it's so cool for me, obviously I've managed to get the credentials with the UFC. Now we've got this unprecedented access that I would have ordinarily never have had. So I'm hoping they continue with that, even past the coronavirus, because you get access to so much more media around the world in that way, like direct access. So I'm hoping it really works for them, because I got so excited. I was like, so the first few minutes you sit down and you're like, Edson Barboza pops and you're like, okay, cool, this is cool. And you're like, oh, I can actually ask questions. And it was a cool thing for me to do.
Yeah.
So some cool things are really emerging. And I think the space of, especially in MMA, like the media opportunities are actually might even get a bit better for everybody, if you're keeping your eyes open and
absolutely. Well, I used to be in your shoes, I had a TV show for, about 4 or 5 years here in the States, and we got nationally syndicated. It was called MMA Inside the Cage, and that's how we covered EFC that way. That's how I made connections with Cairo and EFC, is through that TV show. And we were covering international shows when nobody else was, which is awesome. That being said, I know exactly what you're saying, because we ended up getting UFC credentials as well. We went down to some shows. We went to, I think it was John Jones, Rashad Evans down in Atlanta. I think that was our first big one that we had. I covered 2 Fedor fights in person for Strikeforce, which was crazy awesome. And then I was out there for the biggest show that I was a part of, was Chael Sonnen and Anderson Silva #2, which wasn't a great fight. Chael got beat pretty quickly. But I got really good access. It was like, I think it was the first ever International Fight Week, so there was a lot of stuff going on, the first ever expo. So I know exactly what you mean, man. And getting that press availability and being able to talk to these guys, if that's another thing that comes out of this, it's an incredible thing. And the people that really grind their asses off, and what you do a great job. Because I've seen you, just in the time that I've been with EFC, I've seen you go from, lower tier to move your way up. You know what I'm saying? And I appreciate anybody that grinds their ass off. So the people that are going to work really hard are really going to benefit from this. And you got to take advantage of the cards that you're dealt and adapt. And the people that adapt the best are going to be the ones that win. So there you go.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, man. Of course. You mentioned Cara in the EFC. What's the scenario like? Are you getting much feedback from them? I do believe they are pressing to try and get some sort of green light to do events behind closed doors at the Performance Institute. Have they contacted you at all, or maybe?
We stay in touch.
Virtual,
I probably know
media.
Yeah, well, I mean, I talk with the guys all the time, and I've become real good friends with them. And that being said, as far as, when the next one will be, I don't know. You probably know as good as I do at this point, just because I think everything's up in the air in South Africa. And everybody has different governments. Everybody has different ways to handle things. You know what I mean? Right, wrong, or indifferent. That's what we deal with. So, I know they want to do fights, and I know the fighters want to fight. So I would imagine that as soon as humanly possible they can make that happen, they're going to make that happen. Obviously, I want to be a part of it. We'll see what the landscape looks like at that point. I have a good feeling that I'll definitely be over to South Africa at least 2-3 more times this year, if I had to guess. So I guess we'll just kind of see how it goes, but I'm sure that they will have a show going as soon as possible, because they want to give you guys fight. They have obligations to media companies to put out content. They have obligations to these fighters, so they're definitely very proactive about what they do, for sure.
So would you be, if they said, look, Cyrus, the landscape looks pretty clear, everything's kind of cleared up, can we book you a flight? You're on the next flight out?
Yeah, I mean, if it was today, maybe not. Things are where I live, fortunately, things are much calmer than a lot of the rest of the states. I think we have at this present time maybe 10 total cases and maybe 100-mile radius. I mean, we just don't have very many cases. Nobody's hospitalized. I think we had one person, unfortunately, that passed away, maybe an hour from where I live. But other than that, it's been very, very calm, which has been good. Atlanta's still pretty hot, and I have to go through Atlanta. And obviously, anytime you travel, you have to think about that because you're on a plane with a bunch of people, and it's circulating air. And, I was stressed out coming back from the last one. Luckily, I have some good friends in high places with Delta, and they were able to move me up to first class. And I kind of had my own little pod, and I felt a lot more comfortable. I was supposed to have a window seat, and I literally messaged this girl, and I was like, God, if you love me, if you like me, if you care about me, get me the hell off this window seat because I'm going to lose my freaking mind. Because that's like, I don't know if you've ever made that trip. I mean, that's 16, 17 hours. I mean, that's a beast of a trip.
Hard slog. It's a hard slog.
Buddy. Yeah. So, but, I'm most likely, yeah. I mean, it's not hard to meet me, to talk to me, to know that I really love the EFC. I have a very big allegiance to the EFC, and I've turned down other shows. I've turned down other opportunities to make sure that I make my EFC dates because that's an obligation I make to them. If it's possible, I'll be there.
100%. I actually remembered now when the last show that happened, it was quite a weird night. The feeling was also still, everything was kind of on the edge, and we were kind of, I think it's going to be quiet. People are a little bit worried about coronavirus. Like, no one's really sure what's going on. Like, there's a couple of spreading a bit in South Africa. And I actually remember now, you weren't sure. Like, do I get on the flight? Do I stay at home? Can I go home? Will I be able to leave tomorrow? Yeah. Like, everything was changing by the hour, which was quite crazy. And to your credit, you rolled the dice and got on the plane. I mean, you could have still been stuck here now with us. We could have been chilling.
Listen, man, there's a lot of things that people can say about me, but me showing up, I show up. If I make an obligation, I show up. For me, it's not negotiable. You know what I mean? Unless I'm seriously in danger, I'll be there. Your reputation, it means everything, in the business and stuff. So I've always tried to make myself available at all costs. It's not a fun life. It can be freaking frantic and nuts. And if I never rode on another airplane again, I'm perfectly okay with it. Trust me, I've rode enough for everybody. I'm good. But yeah, I'll definitely be there if I can.
100%. What are the fights off the top of your head, EFC wise, that you're hoping to see before the year's out?
That's a good question.
Or let's say which fighters you're hoping to see in action. There's obviously there was a card that was set. We were going to see the light heavyweights. It was an interim title fight between Zakir Badat and Gideon Drotsky. Yeah. There was a couple of decent fights being lined up. I think it was going to be an 8-fight card. But any names in particular you're excited to see back in the action?
I mean, everything. There's quite a few foreigners that hold belts, which kind of throws a wrench into things sometimes. Obviously, I want to see Dricus come back if possible. I think he's on the verge of something really big right now. So if he didn't, I would totally understand. I think he's really close to living that UFC dream, and I'm so excited for him. What a cool representative for Africa if that should happen. I've really enjoyed watching Temba. And I have almost a newfound respect for Temba. He and I have come a long way. Anybody that knows him real well knows that he's a pretty reserved guy, and it takes a while to kind of break in and to kind of be a part of, his circle and to be able to communicate with him really well. He and I are there now. So I'm really enjoying what he's doing with not just the talking, but with the performance and finishing guys. And it's just a much more exciting Temba Garimbo now. And I think the sky's the limit for him. So I'm really enjoying that process. Faiz, I'd love to see what Faiz comes up with as well. He's that young gun that just, keeps getting better. He's such an interesting fighter because, initially I just thought this guy's just an athlete, you know what I mean? And he's going to beat people just because he's a freak athlete. He's faster than everybody. He has a great gas tank. But now he's starting to show that he really kind of has the skills to back it up. So I'm enjoying his progression as well. So, those guys, just a few off the top of my head that I'm excited to watch. But yeah, man, I love all the EFC athletes. They're so much fun to watch. These guys are all family now, and I stay in touch with them all the time, and I just have such a good connection with these guys that I just want to see them all do well. So those are just a few, I guess, that I'd like to see. I love heavyweights though. I love big dudes. I really, really do. They're so much fun to watch. I've been petitioning hard, and you can ask Graham about this or anybody, to get an all like light heavyweight card. Like that's what I want. And super heavyweight, bring Tiny back, whoever. Just bring everybody in, bro. Like, cause I have it in my mind, and I really truly do believe this, that people love watching these big, larger than life guys fight. You know what I mean? It's just, even if people can make the case, oh, it's boring, they get tired, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People want to see huge individuals punch each other in the face. So, and I'm one of those people, man. I'm a fan before anything else. So I would love to see just an all heavyweight card. And I think we might get it. Who knows, man? If I keep bugging Graham about it, it might happen. Let's see. It'd be amazing.
We could have a heavyweight tournament. That'd be pretty sick.
Man. Just there's so many cool guys. They're all characters too. I mean, you look up and down that roster, and you see some of those guys, and Undabella and Elvis Moyo and all these guys. They all have like this really cool personality to them, and it just reminds you of pro wrestling. Just big, monstrous dudes. You know what I'm saying? With fun personalities. That's what we need, man. I love stuff like that.
100%. Everyone does love a heavyweight. I think it's the pinnacle of combat sport is always the heavyweights, the baddest man on the planet. We all want to see them slugging it out. So
absolutely.
The last thing I wanted to ask you is perhaps you could give us a bit of insight from your position. Any sort of combat sports gyms around you, like doing anything innovative or any sort of word on what's happening stateside? I know this week or the previous week was quite a tough one for the BJJ community, seeing guys like Gary Tonin throwing the towel on their gyms and stuff like that. It was kind of like wind out of the sails for the guys to see that sort of stuff happening, and then looking at your own gym like, well, if he's not going to do it, how are we going to do it? So it was quite a tough week for everybody, but I'm on a bit of a mission going forward to just try and provide a platform to just give insight, if anything, or knowledge. I thought maybe you might have some sort of feedback for us there, like what the vibe is, or what the word on the street is.
It's interesting, obviously, I know a number of guys that have lost their businesses. It's crazy. I have a good friend of mine, and you may have seen the video on Facebook. It was pretty popular, but it was a gym owner up in Michigan. Michigan has been a hot spot in the States, Detroit, that whole area, all throughout Michigan. And their governor is very left-wing, so very progressive left-wing. So, that group has been taking things very, very seriously, almost too careful sometimes, depending on where you live. There's some places that don't have that many cases, but the governor is shutting everything down and won't let anything happen, and I tend to err on the cautious side. You know what I mean? I really do, because my wife's a nurse. We know people in the medical community. I've heard straight from doctors that say, listen, this is not a joke. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be treated like a joke. And I come from the aspect of, if one person dies unnecessarily because you wanted to open your business or you wanted to do this, I think that's bullshit. You know what I mean? Because that's somebody's relative. Even if you think it's just a number and it means not shit to you, that's somebody's relative that's losing their shit right now because their grandma died or their sister died or their mom died or whatever. That's reality. So I tend to be on the cautious side of it. That being said, there's a gym owner up in Michigan. His name is James Gray, and he did this really like HD, really cool, like had all the black background. It was just him talking about the situation. And he basically said, I'm going to open my doors. The governor says I can't. There's an executive order, but I'm going to do it anyways. And I'm doing it in a few days. And he did. And he basically went against that executive order and went against that authority. And the local government didn't fine him and didn't try to shut him down. They just let him continue. And basically everybody signed their waivers and everybody came in and everybody started training again. So there's that, there's people that are really pushing back against it. Obviously, it's just a touchy subject, man. Everybody has their own feelings on it. You know what I mean? It's not something you could just push out there and say, well, this is right and this is wrong. Bullshit. You know what I mean? Everybody has their own reasons for doing what they have to do, man. If you put your heart and soul into a gym or a business or like a place like mine, where it's based around kids, and all of a sudden you can't operate at all, the bills don't stop coming. I mean, you know what I mean? The credit card bills don't start coming, and all that stuff keeps coming. You know what I mean? So it's you have to fight and scratch for what's yours. And I guess, it just comes down to people that are willing to take that chance. Even if we don't believe it's right, if they believe, you know what, I feel safe enough, I can come train and do jiu-jitsu, so be it. They're an adult. They're making a choice. These fighters are adults. They're making choices. So I kind of err on the side of that. The only thing I say is, people that are willing to be reckless or willing to make those choices, if this thing is really what it is, then it's asymptomatic, they could be passing it around to all kinds of people. And that scares me. You know what I mean? So this is such a tough subject, and I can't even take a real stance on it just because it's such a gray area, bro. You know what I mean? So
100%.
But there are gyms that are pushing the envelope and they're trying to come back. A lot of people are doing virtual classes, which I think is cool. Obviously it can't replicate rolling with somebody or sparring with somebody, but at least it's keeping people active. And I know a lot of these gym owners are doing great with it. Good friend of mine, Casey Oxenine, he lives here. He and I have done commentary together for years and years. We had our TV show and stuff. And he started doing online classes and has totally killed it. Jason Mayhem Miller, I did an interview with him. He's doing online seminars. He's killing it, doing a great job. Dave Mazzani's doing one for the EFC, I think, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what day it is. Sometime soon, but
tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and Dave's the coolest. I mean, Dave's just such a great guy, But everybody's starting to adapt, and it's like I told you before, man. The people that will adapt and that will figure shit out are the people that are going to win. There's guys that are throwing in the towel and saying, oh, shit, I can't do it. I got to shut my doors. Well, have you even thought about doing online? Have you thought about doing this, about doing, just kickboxing class and not rolling, or doing this and not, there's possibilities out there. You have to think outside of the box, and you got to figure shit out. That's what I did. I started this TV show, and luckily I had somebody that reached out to me, but I've been reaching out to everybody, man. I've gotten Bob Sapp, which, Bob Sapp, crazy,
Yeah.
right?
Who doesn't know Bob Sapp?
Bro, or Mayhem. Like, Mayhem, I have no idea how hard it was to get him on a freaking interview. Like, he's crazy. Like, he wanted me to, send him all this money, and I'm like, I'm not doing that, Like, this for days I was dealing with him, and Bob Sapp was the same way. But we had awesome interviews, and we made it work, and it's incredible content. It's just, how bad do you want it? You know what I'm saying? It's I don't know, man.
Yeah, man. That's
survival of the fittest, brother.
Yeah, some solid stuff in there, Cyrus. Thank you, man. Definitely, you've got to innovate. I think that's the key. That's the key here. You've either got to fight to survive or throw in the towel. I think it's
sure. Yeah, I mean, it goes with anything. It goes with just any sport. If you think about MMA, man, you think about how they had to adapt. And the fighters that never adapt fall by the wayside. The guys that are only strikers, the guys that are only jiu-jitsu guys. That doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean? Like, you have to have a game. You have to have a decent jiu-jitsu game. You got to have decent takedown defense. Otherwise, you will lose. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to happen. Look at guys like Elvis Moyo, and look at Anisek Kenyeba and some of these guys that have adapted, bro. I'm one of the biggest Anisek Kenyeba fans, bro. And I like the guy just kept, that's the fighter I want to see.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
For sure.
He's been calling for a title shot since before he even had a over 500 record. You know what I mean? Like, he was, bro, he'd lose 3 fights. He'd win 1 fight, and he's like, I want Boyd Allen. It's like, bro, you can't have him. We can't do that. But now he has actually, he has a right to call that out, which I'm so happy for him. And I just hope that, it doesn't get screwed for him. You know what I mean? I hope he doesn't take a fight that's non-title. He loses that fight and he never sees that title shot. You know what I mean? Like, I really hope that he kind of holds out and gets his opportunity, because he should at least fight for the title once. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely, man. Absolutely. He's on an insane tear, and he seems better and better, and he's like getting closer to 40. He might actually even be 49.
I think he's 40.
Yeah. He just keeps getting better.
It's so awesome. It makes you remember why you love the sport. And I've been loving all the EFC clips they put out. Like, for me, it's every morning. I know for you guys it's probably afternoon, but when they start rerunning the fights and stuff, and I love just reliving these fights. Like, it's so much fun.
Sure. Before we go, Cyrus, your new shows, where can people check it out? What's the next one coming up, and how can people stay in touch with your content?
Yeah, it's called In This Corner. We're basically releasing, we do, 2 interviews every weekend. We debut them on the TV channel on Mediacom, and then they give me access to the video and I put it on YouTube. So I usually have it up by Saturday or Sunday. And I think I'm going to translate it to a podcast as well, because it's just pull the audio down and put it on podcast as well. But coming up, we have this weekend, we have Bob Sapp. It's a full hour. It was only supposed to be a half hour, and like, we just kept going and kept going. And this guy is super intelligent. He will blow your mind. Like, whatever you thought you knew about that guy, throw it out the window.
Yeah.
Very interesting guy. And then after that, we have I'll break the news here. This is crazy. So we have Mayhem, which we haven't aired the Mayhem, because I was going to try to put Mayhem and Bob Sapp together, because I thought what a crazy episode it would be. Mayhem on one side, Bob Sapp on the other. But I couldn't make it happen. So we made Bob Sapp happen for the whole hour. So I have a half-hour Mayhem interview. And I don't know if you've watched The Tiger King. Have you watched The Tiger King?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So do you know the guy in The Tiger King on the jet ski, the redheaded guy, that basically snitched out a bunch of people? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I became friends with him on Facebook. Like, little known fact about me, if I watch some reality shows or a documentary, I'll try to find like any character out there and make friends with them just to see what the hell's going on. You know what I mean? Like, so dead ass serious. The day that I finished The Tiger King, I started putting their names into Facebook and kind of stalking them and shit. And I put James Garrettson in, and I was like, whatever. And I found him. So I just hit add friend. The guy, he becomes friends with me. I help him get on Cameo.com and make a bunch of money. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, dude, get on Cameo, ride your jet ski and wish people happy birthday. You'll make tons of money. And he has made tons of money. So now we're friends, and he's a huge MMA fan. And so I was trying to get another Tiger King character, and like, I couldn't get any of these guys because they're all, celebrities now. And I was like, you know what? How about we put Mayhem Miller and this guy from The Tiger King on the episode?
That is
so
amazing.
that'll be next week.
That's an amazing story. I'm definitely going to be tuning into that. That sounds amazing.
Might go viral. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, folks, make sure you check that out. That sounds hell of a interesting, especially when there's not too much fights to watch. You definitely want to see Tiger King cross MMA. That's going to be amazing. So, thanks so much for your time, man. I hope everything pans out nice and we get to see you cage side sometime real soon. Hopefully this is all over and we can get back to whatever normal awaits us.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you so much, and good luck with everything, and stay safe there in SA.
You too, man. Thanks, Cyrus. We'll chat to you later. Ciao.